You are listening to Prepper Talk Radio here on K-Talk AM 1640. And we've got Shane and Scott in the house as usual, and a special guest, Josh Tyler, MMA star, Black Rifle Coffee Company aficionado, social media star.
Well, he's a star as well.
The savage gentleman.
Ooh.
But also Readyman. I mean,
Yeah.
You're kind of a little bit of everything.
A little bit. You know, I dabble in quite a few different things. So you may have seen me in a few places before. I think star might be a bit of a stretch.
Hey, you're a star to me. I watch the videos. It's always fun to have friends that we see online everywhere.
Alongside Matt Best and Evan Hafer and those big names in the Black Rifle Coffee.
Yeah, I'm mostly just an extra in those, actually. Fun fact, if you see a Black Rifle Coffee video that has an ISIS member, that's me.
You're the ISIS guy?
I'm ISIS. I'm all-time ISIS. So you may recognize me getting murdered in several different of their commercials.
The Black Rifle.
Well, I just saw the most recent one where you guys are starting to climb a mountain, but you're in a helicopter.
Yeah,
and
so that was
for the next episode.
Oh, have you not seen? We're up to 3. Actually, 4's coming out soon. It's a 4-part series.
I better go adjust my feed because
yeah,
it did not
gee
notify
whiz.
me. I feel foolish now.
Yeah, that was pretty epic. A buddy of mine came out here, and we put that together in conjunction with Readyman. Obviously, it was involving Black Rifle Coffee, but actually, Black Belt Magazine is getting into the tactical survival space.
Yeah,
and so they sent us out there just to go do some survival stuff, and we built the story around coffee just to give it, just give it some interest. Like, why else are you guys getting in a helicopter flying to the top of a mountain?
I don't know. I've never scaled a mountain for coffee, let alone anything else other than a merit badge. Well, I guess merit badge is less than. But, again, it's like, all right, this is kind of a cool idea. Let's go do something crazy.
Yeah.
Have fun with it, film it. And that's pretty much what you guys do. But there's always something I find in every video that you guys provide, whether it be Readyman, whether it be Black Rifle Coffee, whether it be Savage Gentleman. I mean, it's funny, it's entertaining. Then there's also some serious notes in there as well, and there's usually something educational that'll pull out of it.
Ideally, yeah. I mean, if you can hit on all 3 of those things, and generally speaking, you've put together a very, very solid piece of content. And on the Black Rifle side, those guys tend to lean a little bit more on the entertainment, on the comedy side.
Well, they're trying to sell coffee.
Yeah,
what they're trying to do.
Yeah. On Readyman, we're far more concentrated on the instructional part, the educational, where we want to teach skills. With Savage Gentleman, we're really more going for that kind of that cool factor, and so we touch on a little bit of both with that. So between those and some of the other brands we have, you kind of get all the bases covered.
And I look at your Savage Gentleman, and I look back, because one thing I say all the time is, to prepare for the future, you need to look to the past.
Yes.
So it really seems like with Savage Gentleman, that's what you're doing. At least you have that element in there of looking toward the past and preparing more like they lived, right?
Yeah, well, and it's looking around the world, it's not too difficult to see that times have changed quite a bit from, when I would say we were kind of in our pinnacle of manliness. Let's just put it that way,
I
right?
like that.
We're becoming more and more emasculated in time as you look around, and so for us, it's like, okay, let's harken back to that. Let's, when were we really thriving in what, my peer group. My other people may differ, but what we consider like really manly, what was that heyday? Yeah. And so we're kind of likening back to that, and that's where Savage Gentleman comes from, where you had the marriage of both, extremely savage when need be, but otherwise gentleman. You can't really be both. You need to be you can't be one or the other. You need to be both.
You need to be both.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, to me, it harkens back to like, Daniel Boone. Davy Crockett,
Yep,
Teddy Roosevelt, men who were very well-adjusted, very good in the community, very, very sound mind, but then also, when need be, they were true savages and did some really tough stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
So my question is, why is this important at this time? Why is this so important to be talking about the Savage Gentleman?
Well, I think that it's come to the point where the Renaissance man, the man who's able to do anything and everything, that has that notion of self-reliance is slowly fading. We're seeing less and less of that in society, And so I think we need to harken back. We need to revitalize that. The world in Savage Gentlemen, we've got a little saying. Our motto is the world is full of savages and gentlemen. There's plenty of savages. You just go look through the prisons. Plenty of savages, and we've got gentlemen, but we don't have people that have the ability to be both. It's very rare to find someone who can be both a savage and a gentleman, and that's kind of what we're trying to bring back. And it harkens to that notion of self-reliance, to be able to have some refinement to make your way through society and be polite and all these things, but when it comes down to it, you can go full savage and take care of business as needed.
And I think it means even more than that you are responsible for yourself.
Yes,
right. Not just you can be savage when you need to in defending your rights or your family or whatever it may be, but being self-reliant and not, I guess, copping out is the word I want to use, and putting your responsibilities on somebody else, like what is happening nowadays.
Yeah,
and that comes down to we can talk about the government kind of trying to take over and do everything for us,
right?
Or us relying on the government to do things for us, but it's really up to us. And sometimes that takes being a real man.
Yeah,
to lead a family, to lead a town, to lead a community, whatever it may be. Excuse me.
Well, I think it's interesting because if you watch the demasculating or emasculating of man, it's men aren't allowed to cry, men aren't allowed to be tough, men aren't allowed. It's everything men aren't allowed to do, right? Men aren't allowed to be sincere,
sensitive.
Men aren't allowed.
We have confined men to this very small box, and with Savage Gentlemen, we want to open that box up because really, truly, if we want to get down to it, being a man is however you define it personally. But I think that notion of self-reliance, it's too easy. Society is very comfortable, right? It's very easy to just kind of sit back, do the bare minimum,
coast by
because you're going to get taken care of for the most part. We don't live in a world now, at least in the U.S., where hey man, if you don't put out, you're going to go hungry. All these terrible things are going to happen. Look at the rest of the world. Hey man, you better.
Yep.
You better get with it. But here, we can coast.
One of the funny things, my wife and I watched this show, Timeless. And they're basically time travelers. They go back, and one group's trying to mess up history and take over the world. The other group's trying to stop it. But it's interesting because they pulled a guy from World War I era and brought him into the future. And he's kind of leading the bad guys. And he's eating this food that was just delivered to him. And he goes, and he's talking about how easy we have it today. He's like, this was delivered to me from a car. It was still hot. He's like, if you have food delivered to you, what do you do all day? What do you do for work?
Yeah.
What do you do? And then he also jumped on this, he called this an exertion machine. It was a bicycle, stationary bike. He's like, why? This is a horrible thing to do. Why don't I just go out and do something?
Right.
And everyone's like, well, you can't go out because nobody knows who you are yet, so we've got to keep you safe. But I just laughed when they talked about that because I'm like, that's everything we talk about that's wrong with current society.
We've come to a point in society where we're so advanced that we actually have to invent physical, strenuous work for us to do. That used to be called every day just trying to get by. And now, and that's not a terrible thing. It's great that we have all this ample free time and we live in such a luxurious, convenient environment that oh man, our biggest worry is we got to carve out time for the gym because, you know what I mean? Versus, instead of toiling in a field or whatever manual labor you had to do. And so that's not a bad thing, but again, we're just moving further and further away from that work ethic that got us to where we are. And so with Savage Gentlemen, we're trying to revitalize that to some extent.
Amen to that.
Yeah, and I think having a work ethic is one of the most defining things about a person's character. Honesty, great. I love it. You need to be honest, but I don't want anyone lazy.
Yeah.
Right? When it comes to preparedness, when it comes to survival, when it comes to tough times, I want someone that's going to get in, elbows deep in the mud and get things done. It's funny because in the executive world that I've been in for a long time, back and forth, every time I'm in there, I get annoyed because no one's willing to work hard. They're like, well, no, we're going to work smarter.
We're
and I'm
work
like,
smart, right? Yeah,
you got to do both.
Yeah,
there's a level of effort that needs to be done, but absolutely, if there's an opportunity to work smarter, do it.
Yeah, you hear the saying, "Don't work hard, work smart." That's BS. You got to do both. You got to be smart and work hard.
And again, not to not to keep driving this point home, but that's the notion of savage gentleman, where savage is that brute force work ethic. Gentleman is let's use some intelligence. So again, it encompasses all of that. But yeah, I'll take the workhorse all day in a into the post-apocalyptic scenario.
And that's
when
that's how you truly
fan.
survive, is with that brute force. That's how you and of course with the knowledge and the practice and training and such. And that what leads me into Readyman.
Yes,
I wanted to talk about Readyman
real
quick. What you guys are doing. We've been involved with Jeff and the guys at Readyman back in our PrepperCon days, and I've really got to know you guys and love what you guys are doing. And when it comes down to we always go to the internet. We go to YouTube. We go to for our learning. It's our immediate download, right? We're in the Matrix. We press the button. We download that information. And one thing I wanted to make perfectly clear is that the best quality content that I've found anywhere online is from these guys at Readyman. When it comes to building a fire, when it comes to self-defense, whatever it might be, there's a lot of stuff out there that can be confusing and poorly done. But these guys, they do it right at Readyman.
And just so that the listeners, you guys know that we're not puffing smoke, right? The key here is the information is correct, right? And it's a very wide variety of teachers, instructors. I mean, you guys have you've got Jeff Kirkham, is Wally doing any videos yet?
No, but he's doing a lot of the instructional stuff. So we haven't put him in the instructional videos, but we're getting him hands-on teaching people quite a bit.
You got Tyler White. I mean, you guys have so many people. I mean, it's a very huge depth of skill sets. And I haven't found a channel anywhere that's comparable.
Well, thank you.
People may have one asset or two assets that they can teach on, and that's fantastic. But
and then they do kind of like what we do here. We kind of tuck out our other end most of the time. We have our specialties. We know what we're talking about, certain things. But other ends, we're just kind of... and I hate to say it sometimes, but sometimes, we don't have direct personal experience about every single topic we talk about.
Well, nor should you be expected to. And that's where, for us, we have amassed this, collection of subject matter experts that are, elite in their field. A guy like Jeff Kirkham with 20-plus years in Special Forces.
26 and a half.
Yeah, I mean he's been doing that about as long as I've been alive, and it's like, okay, man, that guy knows his stuff when it comes to actually quite a few things. But I mean, and we try to do that across the board, where whether it's hand-to-hand combat, whether it's bushcraft survival, or whatever that is, we want to bring in, because no one can really truly be an expert in everything.
Well, like your knife fighting training video that I saw just the other day. JD.
Yep.
JD led that, and you were in it with him, and it was very simple to understand. Hear the movements, practice the movement, and you guys ran through the movement over and over and over and over, and then you go to the next movement. And I was just like, I need to do that. I've never done that. I've done some knife fight training with Stan Pruitt at Urban Survivors, and he came through PrepperCon as well. But awesome dude. But it's hard to learn it when it's do this, and it's just so quick. But when you guys do it over and over and over, it gives us a chance to really watch and understand the movement, and then we can start applying it.
Well, and everything that we do, we try to do it from that, very teachable,
basic
very
level.
condensed, very basic, and make it as digestible as possible. A 10-minute dissertation on one technique. Right. It's not bad, but nowadays people don't have the attention span. So we want to put really short, really clear, concise, bits of content that you can go out and you can actually practice it and do it yourself. And that's the big key. That's part of our ethos with Readyman, is to get up off the couch and actually physically do it. And so we try to incorporate the tools to allow you to do that.
With that said, we're gonna check your attention span and go to some commercials. We'll be right back.
Cool off with this.
Welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded, and we've got our awesome guest in the house, Jeff. Well, man, we were talking about Jeff on the break. Now I'm like, Jeff. Shoot, I'm sorry. Josh Tyler. Josh. I'm MMA, the savage gentleman.
Oh, there we go.
The very kind, very hospitable, and very forgiving savage. We actually have a caller that actually called in.
But it's a good thing he's forgiving as well, because he's an MMA fighter as well.
Oh,
so
I'll pull guard and go cry in the corner while he beats me. Like that's the honest truth. I wrestled in high school.
You act like he's never been beat up before, man. It's not that big of a deal.
I've been beat up a lot, but assume the position, right?
I'm wearing glasses, right? You won't hit a guy with glasses, right?
I would.
Let me take it off.
have.
First.
Yeah, there we go. Well, we've got a caller on the line. You wanted to comment on our current conditions.
All right.
Let's bring him back on. Hey, you're live on K-Talk.
Appreciate you gentlemen coming on and trying to explain what's going on in our lives.
Yeah.
You know, President Gordon B. Hinckley, who was a counselor from the state where I grew up, one time stood up and gave a talk. We live in the best of times. We live in the worst of times. Do you remember that?
I've heard of it, and it's been a long time since I've read it.
He was a very insightful man. He had close contact by virtue of the fact that he served his mission in his younger days in the British Isles.
Uh-huh.
And today, the president of our church, President Nelson, faces the same problems.
Yep.
But he's going right back to where the problems that made the problem that kept America, or tried to keep America under their thumb, was right in the city of London. And their President Nelson is right back there again. I hope that he doesn't get the priorities mixed up. We don't owe allegiance to those guys for sure.
Yeah, well, hopefully he can get it figured out. Do you have any comments on Savage Gentleman conversation?
I don't, but I have a comment on your program.
Okay.
It behooves us all to get ready for something. And I think it's going to be something that we don't expect. It's going to be big, and it's going to be awesome. It may be for the positive, maybe for the negative, but I smell a change coming.
You are absolutely right.
I do as well.
Thank you so much for your
thanks for the
call.
comment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely a perfect comment there, is that things are changing. Things are different every single day. Josh?
Fun fact, I had no idea that Charles Dickens stole that quote from this guy's state board president. It was the best of times. That's actually a Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah, definitely. He was quoting Charles Dickens.
Yeah.
No, I think that guy said it first.
I don't know.
I think Charles Dickens got it from him.
He copied it from
Who
him.
knows?
If I know history like I think I do.
But we've had this conversation before too. Is that right now? It is the best of times, but it's the worst of times.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Are things better or are they worse? We've had this conversation before. Things are better in some ways, and they're worse in other ways. Take advantage of technology, but technology is also corrupting us, I guess you could say.
In quite a few ways, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's where we need to get in touch with our savage gentlemen that way.
Yes, indeed.
We need to be us men need to be men, women need to be women. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. That's the way it needs to be, and that's why I try and teach my son and my daughters every day is men be manly, women be womanly, if that's the right word.
And I think that can even be distilled further to where, again, coming back to this notion of self-reliance, we've become super dependent on all these these different things, on society and on the government and on all these things to stand up for us and do for us, that we forgot to provide and do for ourselves. And again, Savage Gentleman touches on that. Readyman really explores that by teaching some of those skills, teaching how to be prepared for whatever, and that can be something as epic as full-on, apocalyptic World War, right? To simply just changing a tire because you got a flat.
Knowing how to darn your socks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And women do some things better than men. Men do some things better than women, and we need to embrace that. And
that's
take
okay.
advantage of it.
Yeah,
yes,
it's okay
absolutely, it's okay.
Well, it's designed.
That's designed of it.
So that
absolutely
society needs both men and women, strong men and women, so that together, because men have traits that women don't have and women have traits that men don't have, but together we can actually create a better society.
And that difference is...
I'm a huge believer that when the crap hits the fan, we've got to come together as communities. The whole bug out immediately solution that a lot of people subscribe to, I think is going to get you killed. If your strategic relocation is part of your plan and you've got a group that's strategically relocating, great. That's different than what people are using bug out as. Bugging out is not just wandering off.
Right. Well, and I think the operative word there is group. The lone wolf mentality where you're just going to go head up in the mountains and survive on your own is a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. Oh, and speaking of recipes for disaster, we've got some questions from Conflicted.
Hello.
That's perfect.
Hello.
Right?
So yes, what we're leading into here is that Readyman and Conflicted collaborated on their own deck of cards, and you've heard us talk about these in the past. The
Conflicted
games, Conflicted the game. We've had Josh Wiscombe on before, and we gave away a bunch of cards. Had a really fun show. We probably gave away 20 decks that day.
Wow.
Or so.
Yeah, we did. It was insane.
They're scenario cards. Basically, it's a scenario game where the cards list a scenario or other topic, and you discuss the particular topic. And there is a strategy to the game, but we don't play the game here on air live. We just go through the scenarios and talk about them, and unrehearsed, and we just pick one out. And
these are, I think, my favorite shows out of the year is when we get to do Conflicted card game, because I'll pick a card that neither of you prepared for.
Yep.
You'll pick a card that we've not prepared for, so you can pull something out of the deck, literally, and it's just our very own tiny SHTF scenario.
And this one might be a little bit more difficult for me. This is a Readyman deck, and so it has a lot of...
it's more educational.
What is that? What are you saying about me? No. Not educational. No. It's very... that's true. More educational than scenario. Correct. That's what you're saying. But it also... it seems to have a lot about because Jeff is military background, and so a lot of it has that military background in there, which I'm not such a strong on. So we're going to rely on Josh on this a little bit more. Since you hang out with Jeff,
well, yeah,
than we do.
I guess I've picked up a little bit through osmosis.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully he's schooled me up in some of these things. But the cool thing about this Readyman Conflicted card game is, these scenarios are really well thought of. We collaborated with them and kind of sat down and came up with as comprehensive as a list of scenarios and skills and things that you would need as we could, catering it to kind of what we see as that, the Readyman archetype, right? And what we're trying to push, kind of through our ethos. And so that's what these are centered around. And a lot of them are really thought-provoking. They cover a wide variety of subjects from, close quarters combat to hostage escape to,
a lot of things you'll find on the Readyman videos.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Cool.
So here's a question that leads into one of the cards. Which would you rather be raising, rabbits or
I saw
cattle?
that one. I saw that card here.
Rabbits or cattle?
Yeah. Because there's a lot of cattle guys out here.
Sure.
In Utah, right? We're out in the West. There's a lot of cattle guys. And there's a big argument that that's better, but what would you choose personally?
Both.
Why?
I would like one of each. I mean, the downside to rabbits is, you're talking about a real fast turnaround on meat. The meat is good. I've eaten rabbit. They're fast, easy to process. They don't require as much space and resources, so that's a bonus. The downside, though, is they're such a lean meat. They're super lean. You can't survive off of rabbit alone. It's a supplemental thing, and that's where having something like beef, in addition to that, now you're getting a bit of both, and so now you don't have to have 100 head of cattle. You can have a smaller cattle supply that you're supplementing with the rabbits. That's the way I would approach it. There's a lot. I'm sure you guys probably listeners.
That's a very wise perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
it's the beard.
I'm a steak guy, right? Well, there you go. It's the gentleman beard side of you. So here's why I pulled that up, because I raise rabbits with my brother-in-law, and we've slaughtered a few and ate them, and we do that to practice and keep ourselves ready. But we don't have anywhere we can raise cattle of our own.
Sure.
But if ever given the opportunity, I would love to have. Actually, I don't want to have cattle, but I want to have goats. I want to have alpacas, and I want to have rabbits on my property. But here's the reason I brought this up. It says here's one of the cards: killing what you eat. Rabbit dinner. Rabbits produce 6 pounds of meat on the same feed that it takes for a cow to produce 1 pound of meat.
Wow.
The peak time for butchering rabbits is only 8 weeks. Have you ever considered raising meat rabbits? If not, what protein sources do you have in place now if society were to collapse tomorrow?
Yeah, great question.
So what have you got ready, Shane?
My primary source of protein is in my food storage, which is, of course, rice. And we do have some canned meats, both dehydrated as well as canned, or bottles, whatever you want to call it. So I would say that is a weak link in my preparedness.
Do you have broccoli?
I have very little broccoli.
Broccoli has more
I do have a lot of broccoli
protein
seeds
per ounce than steak or any other meat.
And I do plan on fishing as well.
There you go.
Again.
Well, and I think so a couple points that are brought up there for a lot of folks. The thought is, well, I'll just live off the land. I'll go. We've got hunters and guys that are used to going out and hunting deer, hunting elk, whatever.
They're both very lean animals,
which are very lean. Also, again, depending on the scenarios, that's relying on modern convenience of motor vehicles to help with that, as well as the number of people actually hunting is relatively small right now. If things go awry, now everyone's going to be up in the mountains trying to hunt. We're going to exhaust that resource. Yes. So that's to rely exclusively on that, I think is a bit foolhardy. Yes, have that as an option. Have fishing, have hunting, have trapping. But to say, well, that's going to be my only means, I think that's going to be a tough one to execute.
Absolutely.
And then circling back, you were saying that was a weak link. I'm going to use this as an opportunity for a shameless plug.
Go for it.
With Readyman, we're rolling out a program. You guys may have, I think we've talked about it before, the Plan to Survive.
Plan to Survive, yes. I was going to say
So
that.
Plan to Survive is actually this comprehensive checklist that you'll go through, and you'll see exactly what that weak link is. You'll find that, oh man, my food storage is pretty lacking relative to my firearms or my water procurement or whatever the category is, and you can actually get a visual of where you're really strong and where you're weak, and then with the program it actually helps you to implement and bring those skills up to par.
And I think part of this raising your own food, whether it be beef cattle or rabbits or whatever it is again going back to community. Have someone in your community who knows how to do that.
Yeah.
Who
someone who's
is already
raising
doing
chickens,
that.
someone who's got rabbits, someone with goats.
Exactly, you can barter with.
Yes.
So chickens are on my long-term, medium to long-term plans. So protein from eggs, chickens and so forth.
My neighbor across the street has 14 chickens.
So you know where to get
better
your
not
chickens.
say what city I'm in because I think he's breaking the rules. There's a limit. Actually, he only has 5. I think it's 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
5. But he
That's right,
he
right,
provides
he only has
eggs. He gives away eggs to neighbors all the time.
Yeah. An egg a day per hand.
And we've got one neighbor that does a really good job with the garden. And we've got a lot of deer in the area where I live, and so it's really hard to keep your garden, from getting
Intact.
overrun. But he's got tall fences he's put around the entire thing, so it's safe. And so I'm working on a greenhouse solution, but I've been working on it for a year and I haven't done anything, so I shouldn't say I'm working on it. I've got a greenhouse solution I need to do. I've just been a lazy SOB about it. And
We've been
focusing on
busy.
other things.
And we're just trying to survive every day, in this situation we put ourselves in, right? In this modern society, which kind of compels us to have full-time jobs and have to go out to the gym to work out because we only have a half an hour or an hour instead of working in the field, plowing a field, and getting our exercise that way.
Well, we got another caller. Let's take this call real quick. Hey, thanks for calling K-Talk. You're on the air. Do you have a comment for us?
Yeah, from an old pathologist. If you really want to be efficient in your dietary choices, it takes 800 pounds of silage to produce 1 pound of beef. It takes 70 pounds of silage to produce a gallon of milk. So if you really want to be efficient and you also want to avoid diseases, because the primary source of pathogens, that's infections and sickness, come out of the animals. You handle them in the raw, of course, and anything that's produced from them is a high risk of infection. So if you're out in the wild, you don't want to get sick, right? So the best thing to do is to consume those things that cannot carry infections, and that is the plant foods.
Fantastic point.
Talking about broccoli being efficient as a protein carrier.
Yes.
Source, you're exactly right. That's how a cow builds its size and weight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Fantastic
That's a great
comment.
Great comment. It's often.
Was that guy trying to sell us on veganism?
Well,
No, but my entire food storage,
sold.
my freeze-dried food storage is all vegetarian.
Yeah.
Right. I've got some
most part,
freeze-dried
absolutely,
meats
yeah.
and stuff like that, but most of my
expensive.
stuff is vegetarian, and I would rather keep it that way because number one, it keeps longer. It's easier to preserve that way,
Yes.
but also it doesn't take much to add flavor, and you can mix things up a little bit. Like, oh, hey, we got a rabbit, cool, let's throw some rabbit in with that. Oh, hey, we got some fish, let's throw some fish in with that. And it changes things up. But the other thing is tons and tons of people forget to store enough salt and enough spices.
Yeah.
Right? Get those things together. I mean, unfortunately, white man has pretty much decimated the world looking for spices, but yet we have the most bland foods. Let's use what we've conquered the world for, guys.
Hey, at least we have the Great Salt Lake right here, right? We got
Yes.
Yeah, plenty of salt.
Plenty of
We're
salt.
good on salt.
Salt flats. I mean,
well, and it's interesting too if we look back through the evolution of mankind. We started off where it was far more meat. That's
Yes.
we were procuring meat when we were more isolated. But then as society built up and we started coming together in communities, we switched to the more agrarian society.
Agrarian,
yeah.
Cultivating plants and eating more of that, and I think it'll probably when everything goes south, it'll follow a similar trend where everyone's scrambling for meat in the initial stages, and then
You gotta plant.
Then we'll start planting again.
Because yeah, exactly. We're not all growing gardens right now. We're not going to immediately have that crop available, so we
Right.
got to go out and hunt in the meantime to support in between when our crops growing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
So yeah, fantastic call. Thanks for
So if you want
the comments.
someone told me, it was probably John Roberts, I think, said this when he was on with us a while ago. He said, if you're going to be there for a little while, plant a garden. If you're going to be there for for years, plant apple trees and plant nut trees. Those are the things that are going to help sustain long term, and you can get a lot more out of those, and it's a lot less labor intensive over the years. But plant some fruit trees, plant some hefty, yearly growing, always coming back.
Forget the shade trees.
Yeah,
Get the fruit trees.
get the fruit trees. We're actually about to hit a break.
Yep,
Sorry,
there we go.
we got a caller that just came in. I just saw you show up, so call back after the break. We'll bring you on the air. But we are Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded. We've got Josh with Savage Gentleman and Readyman, Black Rifle Coffee Company, MMA.
You name
He
it.
can do backflips and stuff, I'm sure.
And with a newborn baby as well. So
And a brand new
congratulations.
heavyweight baby. We'll be right back after some messages from our sponsors.
This
Well, welcome back to Prepper Talk Radio for the ready-minded. My microphone is not loud enough, I guess.
we go.
Maybe it is now.
Turn the music
We're
down.
excited to be here. I'm going to turn the music all the way off.
Oh, okay.
We've got a as I peek the needle, whatever. I don't know.
Oh, the
My mind just left.
lovely
and I'm
70s,
now
80s technology that we
popping
have
the
to
mic
deal with
again.
here at the station.
So we've got Josh Tyler in studio with us from Savage Gentleman, and we've got a caller on the line that wants to talk about the Salt Lake City soon-to-be apocalyptic scenario.
Ooh.
And this goes right in line with conflicted cards. So let's bring him on.
Cool.
Hey, you're on the air with Prepper Talk Radio. You had a scenario you wanted to bring up, the Mad Max Salt Lake City. Give us the scenario.
It's not just Salt Lake. It's all along the track lines and everywhere they can put a apartment that holds 50 apartments. They're throwing them up everywhere, and
Yes, they are.
they're gonna create a situation where these people won't be able to provide one thing for themselves. So where are they going to go? If you got an acre of property and you're in a neighborhood where they throw up one of these things, you're going to be fighting off 50 people or 100 people.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
so we're going to talk about that. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. All along the Wasatch Front, it's the demand for apartments is insatiable right now. Which if you're an investor, you're a smart businessman, that's what you're going to do. You're going to chase, go where the business goes,
Where the money is.
But unfortunately, these people who are moving into the apartments are like we've been talking about here, is that they're not relying on themselves; they're relying on someone else.
We had a couple weeks ago a guest on that is an apartment prepper.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot
And
of apartment
he's
preppers out
made
there, yeah.
living in an apartment work, and he actually grows stuff on his balcony. But
Which is cool, but I mean, let's not kid ourselves, right? I think we're all pretty clear, or at least should be, that being in a large metropolitan area is going to be a death trap. Like
Yep.
to do that is not going to be sustainable. You probably won't be able to bug out immediately unless you are somehow ahead of the curve and see whatever happens coming.
Exactly.
But to stay in an urban environment is, I would say, probably suicide.
Yeah, we talk about
just can't.
Yeah, we talk about bugging out is probably our last option. Mm-hmm. But if you're in an apartment, that probably should be your first option. And you have to leave early.
well, okay, bugging out, strategic relocation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's always remember that you've got a purpose and a place.
Yeah, it's
You're
not
going
just-
You're
somewhere.
going somewhere specific. You're not just okay.
Yeah. And you're going
venturing
somewhere
out.
where you have other people that already live there, so you're not squatting on somebody else's property or taking somebody else's resources. You're going to your shared resources.
Or just leaving just to get out of there, which
Yeah.
is probably not a bad idea at a certain point.
The Walking
Sure.
Dead is highly entertaining and disgusting at the same time, but
Right.
It is not a way to survive.
No.
Well, and and the point the caller had brought up was fending off and defending your plot of land. And again, in an urban environment, you're just not going to be able to do that. You absolutely can't. I mean, you may for a period of time, but eventually you're going to get overrun. If you're the only prepared person and everyone else is like, hey, Steve has got all the stuff.
I see a garden over there.
I see a garden and we're starving. You know what I mean? Like you just can't do that for a length of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where I guess the word savage then pops into my head.
If need be, and
but
people,
not combined with the gentleman side.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Make no mistake that if my kid or whoever's kid is starving, the lengths as a parent that I would go to procure food, would get pretty savage. And so you have to take that, polite society as we know it. Just your chain link fence is probably not going to be enough to keep people from busting in and taking things.
We're going to revert to the Wild West in seconds.
Yes.
Like that's the nature of humanity.
Look at natural disasters. I mean, look at Katrina. Look at some of these other hurricanes and stuff. When things got really, really bad, we got some glimpses of what people were capable of.
So, in preparing for just about anything and everything, one of the questions on the cards is, what is your favorite piece of EDC gear and why?
Ooh, favorite piece of EDC gear? Oh, man. So,
Josh, if you didn't know, EDC means everyday carry.
Oh, man. I thought it was
Something else.
something else. I was way off. Way off.
Most of our listeners, if they listen regularly, they know what EDC means.
Yeah, I would assume so. I feel like Jeff would be very upset if I didn't say that my favorite piece was a Readyman survival card or something of the like. And that is a pretty bomber piece to have. I've got one in my truck. I've got one in my bags. I usually have one in my wallet. For me, having a knife is probably my number one go-to EDC above all else.
Yeah, other than your own mind, correct?
Ooh.
That's my
talking,
answer.
We're talking
Bum,
about
bum,
gear,
bum.
right? We're
As long as I don't lose my head, I've always got my mind.
Right, exactly.
And that has
skills,
all
your
the knowledge and skills that I've acquired over my 40 years of exciting life.
But that's a
and
given,
sometimes
right?
not
That's a
exciting.
given.
I think so, and that's not really what I would qualify as gear.
Yeah,
I'm a gearhead.
Oh, well then, there you go.
that makes
I'm
sense.
going to have a
That's
snarky
semantics, sir.
response every
Smarty.
time.
Semantics.
That is true.
So yeah, I agree.
Pocket knife for me
of
is
some
also
sort.
the same.
Yeah.
I've actually reverted back to my realtor pocket knife since I'm taking the real estate mantle back on.
So
remember
if
which
you,
pocket
if you
knife
need
that
a good
is?
buyer or seller's agent, Scott Stallings on Facebook.
So one of my pet peeves is when I
I'll plug you shamelessly.
open a door and it swings closed or it swings open and it doesn't just hang right.
Yeah.
I've always got my pocket knife,
Little socket.
Wow.
can opener,
Uh-huh.
and screwdriver set so I can fix those.
Man, that is handy.
And it's because of my dad. He's a general contractor, so I grew
Yeah,
up
you got a
always
multi-tool. That's
always fixing stuff, and he's like, "Oh, this door's not working right," and he'd fix it. And so now I'm like,
It's a
"Oh,
curse.
I've got a disease.
It's a curse. I'll be
it's a
standing in
curse and a
somebody's
blessing.
house like, oh, this is loose. I'm going to tighten it.
Yeah.
Why am I compulsed to do that, to fix something for somebody else?
maybe they like it that way. Like, why don't you leave
Exactly.
people's stuff
I'm
alone?
screwing things
Jeez.
up.
I always ask.
I do that all the
so
time.
Oh, that's
I'm
polite.
Good.
That's
yeah,
good.
I don't.
That's
I
very
just-
It's
gentlemanly.
the gentlemanly thing to do. But if it's at like friends or family's home, I don't ask. I just fix it, and that's pretty savage.
It is.
Yeah, I like this wordplay.
Okay, so Josh's last comment about the Readyman cards. The card, one of these game cards that I picked is about picking a padlock.
Ooh.
So I think your very first Readyman card was the lock picking set, correct?
Yes,
That was like your very first
the HEC card, the hostage escape and evacuation card.
And so that's, I think, still my favorite one and the most useful. You can keep this one in your wallet and then break it down and pick a lock. Just right there. It works that well.
We've actually used it to unlock a locked closet where my nephew got locked himself in, and he had the keys on that side with him. And we're like, how the heck? So we pulled out my hostage escape card, and my sister-in-law actually used it and unlocked the door. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, this actually works!" I'm like, "Of course it works." I'm like,
Obviously.
come on.
Jeff designed it.
Yeah. Well, and the beauty of that is it's a dual purpose thing where, yes, if you have it on your person, if something were to happen, and even something as mundane as, oh, I need to open this padlock that I don't have a key for, or, extending as far as, hey, I've been kidnapped and now I need to get out of these restraints, which is very unlikely, and they may they're probably, if they're worth their salt as a kidnapper, going to take that from you. But what it does is it provides you with the knowledge, if you use it as a training tool, to learn how to pick locks and to use whatever's around you. Because now, from using that card, I can just look and see a little scrap of metal or that I can fashion into a tool. And that's kind of, again, going back to the mantra with Readyman, is to constantly be improving, constantly working on making things better for yourself when it comes to a survival situation.
And that fits our mantra as well. We use the ready radius, right? What's in you, your mind, what's on you, what's around you, and you work on every layer out to get to where you need to be or where you want to go. But utilizing what's around you as tools to help you in that pursuit. And the Readyman card, I mean, I got to design one with Jeff for the PrepperCon.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And it's a pretty bomber card. It's my favorite.
Got some fishing
just
lures
because I got to help make it. It's got an AR scraper, a saw, a trident,
the wilderness
spearhead.
survival cards, what you call it, right?
It's a prepper card because most preppers have an AR, and most preppers are going to want to fish.
If you don't, you better get one now. Because
get them while you can.
Yeah. Well, that goes to another question. Okay, this is Jeff's probably most famous question that he asks all the time is AR or AK?
Yep. You knew what he was going to.
Oh, I knew. Yeah.
And I know Jeff's answer every time.
Every time. And here, man, I'm so torn because
I've still get an AR.
Yeah, I mean, why not both?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If you have the resources.
If you have the option,
both.
definitely both. Always both.
Which has more ammunition in America? Which ammunition is more?
I think the 5.56 is going to be more common.
Sure.
223 is more common around here than the 7.62.
So why not get an AK in the caliber of 5.56?
And you could, and that's a great answer. Yeah, you absolutely can.
That's my next gun.
But you can also get an AR in the caliber of an AK of the.
Well, you could,
but I want to be able to get the most ammunition possible.
Well, the plus side of the AK is, well, there's a lot, right? And I won't go into that. I'll leave that for the man himself to go into. But
the Robinson XCR instead of either.
Yeah.
That's
your best. Company. That's your best bet, honestly.
It's a cross hybrid between an AR and an AK, and it's best of both worlds.
Well, the cool thing about it is like they use the AK functionality of I don't need any tools. I can disassemble the whole thing by hand and put the whole thing back together.
Super simple, and a lot more simple than an AR.
Reliable.
And that's one of the things. That's one of the the plus sides to an AK is that reliability and the simplicity of it. Yeah. Personally, I'm not as comfortable, manipulating that weapon as I am with an AR.
Same.
Like I feel, and I think most of us are. That's not to say that I'm going to I'm just going to leave that. No, you keep it. I don't want one. I'm going to take it.
No.
If that's what I need,
pocket knife. I'm good.
If it's an AK or nothing, bet your bet.
Absolutely. And I think it really comes down to, of course, training with that whatever platform you choose, whether it's AK or AR. What your ultimate goal or means is with that particular tool.
Right.
So, I got myself an AR several years ago. Really, the AKs weren't so appealing to me. And I've got extra parts for it. I know how to clean it. I know how to maintain it. And I know that I'm not necessarily going to be in the conditions that Jeff was in over in the sandbox over there in Iraq, Iran. And so, for me, that's what I've stuck with. And it's up to individual.
You just haven't hung out with Jeff long enough.
No, I haven't.
If you stand next to him long enough, all of a sudden you'll just start talking about Kalashnikovs, and
you're going to feel inferior very quickly.
And you'll also know the entire history and the creation of and the modernization of and the distribution of that platform. I mean, it's just it's pretty phenomenal what he knows, and not just on the side of
the job though
armament, but also historically. He is a true historian. Like he loves to study history and know what happened and how it happened.
In history, if you know history, you can make a better choice in the present or in the future.
Yeah,
if you know the
history.
Yeah, for the future. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I think that's what we always like to leave with is in order to prepare for the future, what do we have to do?
Look to the past.
Look to the past.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think Savage Gentleman, you guys, Readyman, Savage Gentleman, Prepper Talk Radio, like we all speak the same thing. We have our message maybe a little bit differently, but it's delivered differently. But the message is the same. It's look at the skills that got us to where we are. Keep those skills sharp.
Yes.
Keep that knowledge in the forefront of your mind, because once you lose that, then you really start losing your freedoms. As long as you have that, you can create a better future. and when the time does come that we're going to be reliant solely on that, YouTube's going to be gone and all the other digital devices that keep us hogtied to whatever is not happening, right? When those things are gone, you're going to be starkly aware of what you know and don't know.
Yes, very, very. And the best way, again, to figure that out, and I do it all the time where I'll think I know something or feel like I have a pretty good working knowledge. I'll go out in the field and realize very quickly that, ooh, wait, this detail or that detail is missing.
Did not work for me.
Yeah, and it's far better to do that in a more controlled environment. It's the same thing with fighting, right? And when you're training for a fight, you want to practice those skills and know that they work. You don't want to just step in the cage and be like, well, I saw this in a movie once, so I'm going to try it and hope for the best. That's a bad plan.
Well, and Josh knows that very well.
Yeah. Well, when we did the Readyman challenge, I mean, you were there. You saw us. We were told, bring your 72-hour kits. And I'm like, okay. Well, but the scenario wasn't based on a 72-hour kit. I would have completely packed 100% different for that.
Sure.
But I was able to use everything I had in my 72-hour kit. And I intentionally, he's like, you're going to be staying overnight. So he gave us a little bit of the scenario. I intentionally didn't bring a sleeping bag.
Right.
I wanted to see how my bivy bag, my little reflective Mylar piece of crap, could do.
Yeah, and that's where you have to test your gear. You got to test your skills. You got to test your gear. Sitting and you can watch all the videos in the world that you want to, and that's all well and good. But if you don't get out and actually attempt it, you're gonna be in trouble.
All right,
we're gonna leave you with that. Get out and practice what you've got. Otherwise, you're screwed. You've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio with Josh Tyler, Shane, and Scott.
Are available right now.